Okay, thanks so much. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this dog portrait class today. I'm Dan Bledsaw, and I'm your instructor, and Megan is going to be your moderator today. Newell Brands is my company. They make Prismacolor colored pencils, which I'll be using for the class today. Newell is known for such awesome writing brands as Prismacolor, Sharpie, and Papermate, as well as numerous other brands that I'm sure you've heard of. If you share your artwork today from this dog portrait class, please reference Make It with Michaels or at Prismacolor. And then you can also look up some of my dog artwork on Facebook and Instagram if you reference these names.
And we have people joining from everywhere. We've got Atlanta, California, Texas, Ohio.
Awesome.
Hey, everybody.
Good to see everybody here. Thanks for joining us. Okay, well, let's get started. Let's go over to the drawing table. Okay, the supplies I'm going to be using today are just a basic Bristol paper that you can get at Michael's, just a Strathmore Bristol. But if you have a paper with tooth, or even printer paper will work, just to practice on to get used to using Prismacolor colored pencils. I'm just using a basic metal sharpener that comes with some of the Prismacolor sets, and just a basic gum eraser for erasing in case we need it. I have a reference image of the dog here that you could download to look at, and I'm also looking at a photo of the dog on my tablet. So let's get started. The first color I'm going to use is cream, and this beautiful yellow lab has a lot of yellowish kind of cream color in the fur. So we're going to go ahead and just color in that basic mid-tone color of the lab. And I'll probably need to sharpen occasionally, so I'll get my little sharpener out with my bottle for the shavings. I'll be doing that occasionally. And instead of rubbing it with your hand, sometimes it's better to just blow on it when you get, extra particles of wax. So I'm just going to go in and we're going to fill in that basic cream color in the background. We're going to go ahead and fill in all these midtones to get this beautiful yellow lab started. It's just about getting the colors going, getting those white areas filled in where the fur is on the head. Once again, I'm sharpening. A little more sharpening.
Hey, Raina, while Dan's doing that, do you mind explaining to everybody again how to turn off closed captioning if they don't want it?
Yeah, no problem. So at the bottom of your screen, there should be a button next that says live transcript or subtitles. And if you click on that, there should be an option that says hide subtitles, and that will hide them for you.
So I'm just going in and filling in more of that yellow cream color to get the head just kind of filled in. That's the first step when you do your dog portrait. You're just going in, you're blocking in the colors just to get it started. Okay, to sharpen once again. Almost got the yellow cream color filled in. And dogs are a lot of fun to draw and color because their fur is so different on each different type of breed of dog. Yellow labs have a lot of yellowish cream color. They have a lot of browns and grays in their fur. So now that I got the cream color filled in for the midtone, in this ear area of the dog, there's a lot of kind of brownish colors So I'm going to go in with a light umber to fill in the ear. So we're just going in, once again, we're just doing the midtones. We're just blocking in the fill colors just to get started. And then later on, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and add in shadow and highlight and details of the fur. But right now, we're just trying to get in the basic fill colors. So as we move over to the mouth, his mouth comes in a little dark. So there's like a little dark circular area here. So let's go ahead and fill that in. And then it goes up to the muzzle. There's more, and this is just black. I'm just using black in that area because it's pretty
Dan,
black.
will you repeat which color you were using on the ear too?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. On the ear, that was a light umber. And then of course the main part of the dog's head was the cream color. So we're just going in with black, filling in the muzzle area of the dog, of the yellow lab.
Hey Dan, do you mind just going a little bit slower?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect, thanks.
So if you look at the image, it's black around the nose, and then it kind of fades out into the kind of the cream or white colored fur there around the muzzle. But right now we're just trying to fill in that dark area by the nose. And now we're going to go in, as long as we have the black, we're going to go into the eyes and just fill in the black areas around the eyes. This eye over here on the right is kind of off in perspective off the side of the head, so you only see an indication of the eye there. But this eye right here, the main view of the dog, we can really see that eye. And the eyes are so important to doing your dog portraits. You really want to focus your attention on the eyes. And a lot of times what you'll see is a little sparkle in the eye, and that brings that eye to life because those animals love you so much. They look up at you with that loving look, and the eyes are what really make the portrait of your dog.
Hey Dan, will you pull your finished version down a little bit so everybody can see the
Yeah,
eyes for
sure.
reference too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Is that a
that's
little better?
awesome. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, once again, we're going to leave that little sparkle white, let the white paper show through there. And we're just going to go in and fill in the black of the eye. And then there is some black, kind of black or gray fur around the eye on this yellow lab. So we're going to start to indicate that with the black. I'm not pushing it very hard because it's almost kind of a gray around the eye. And you can kind of just do like little dash lines because it's just really the fur coming up to the edge of the eye. And we're probably going to go back over that with other colors later. But right now, we're just trying to fill in the black area around the eye. And so now let's go in and start adding some of the shadow and midtones. Like on the ear, let's start with there. Let's start with the, there's a lot of red. If you look at this image of this dog, there's a lot of red as well as brown in the ear. And that's pretty common with yellow labs. You see a lot of kind of a burnt ochre red. And that's what I'm using right now is a burnt ochre. It's almost like a, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like a brick red or something, but it's a reddish brown. So we're just going to go in and fill in that ear with this reddish brown color. Because a lot of times with Prismacolor, you can layer colors to make another color. because sometimes colors aren't just one color, they're layers of colors. And that's the beauty of Prismacolor, is you can go in and just put layer after layer of color. And so you can start to indicate some of that fur. If you look at the image, you can look at the individual fur and how it lays on the ear. And you can start to kind of indicate that a little bit. You don't have to draw every single, piece of fur, but little indications of lines of fur really help. And to build on that, the shadow around the ear is kind of it's a dark brown. So we've got a dark brown Prismacolor. And so if you look like on the corner of the ear, you can see some of the shadow where that ear starts to fold. And there's more shadow with some of the fur along the edges of the ear. And we're going to go in with white too on that ear, because there's white along the edge of the ear too. When you look at the photo where the light hits it, you can see white on the fur. So right now I'm just going in and adding some detail of dark brown in the ear. And we're going to do the same thing to the rest of the head of the yellow lab. We're going to add browns to the fur there too, to give us more details. What's that?
Will you tell everybody what the name of this color is exactly?
This color is dark brown that I'm using right now. And I'm trying to indicate some of the darker shades of the ear of the dog, where you can see like where there's wrinkles on the dog's ear, you start to see some darker shades. And that's what I'm trying to indicate right now with the dark brown, is some of that darker brown color. It's basically 2 or 3 different shades of brown for this ear. So I'm going in, adding some individual lines of fur. And now I'm going to take the white, and see, the white is really key when you're doing your dog portraits, because the white is kind of a blender, as well as you can use white to show highlights, but it also blends colors together, which makes the fur look, soft and, fur-like, is because of that blending of the colors. So I'm going in with that white. There's white on the edges of the ear where the light hits it. And the nice thing about Prismacolor white is you can color Prismacolor white over any other color and it'll lighten it, even dark colors like dark brown. So I'm trying to pop those edges of the dog's ear with that white. And then I'm going to go in and try to blend some of the other colors with the white. There's another color that Prismacolor makes called the blender pencil, and that's great for doing blending too as well. But I use a lot of the white pencil when I'm doing dog portraits because it makes the fur look really soft. It blends it all and it makes it look a lot more like fur. So I'm just going in to that ear and just smoothing the colors of brown. And I'm pushing harder when I see some of the light on the photo where the light hit the ear and where the individual furs start to show up in white almost. So now it's starting to look more like the fur of the dog's ear. So now I'm gonna, what's that?
Do you mind doing just a super quick pause and running through all the color names that you've used so far?
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, so far I've used burnt ochre for the reddish brown on the dog's ear. I've used dark brown for the darker areas of the dog's ear. I've used black for the muzzle of the dog and the eyes, and white. And then also for the main yellow part of the yellow lab, I've used cream, and that gives it kind of that light yellow lab look. But obviously the dog isn't just yellow. A yellow lab has lots of other colors. So now I'm going to go in. Oh, and I've also used light umber on the ear too. That was the first color I used. So now I'm going to go into the main head of the dog and start to put in some indications of where the fur is and where the individual pieces of fur show up as more of a brown color. It's all about the way the light hits the animal's fur when you take a picture. And if you take a picture outdoors of your dog, you get a lot better color of the dog's fur than you do sometimes indoors, because sometimes the lighting indoors isn't the best. But right now I'm going in with the light umber and I'm trying to draw some of those individual areas of fur where it's a little darker. Your cream color gives you your backdrop for the fur, and that's just a fill. But it's when you do these mid-tone darker colors and shadows that you start to see the areas of the fur of the dog. So if you look at your image.
Dan, do you mind sharing the reference image on your iPad real quick? I sent it in the chat too for everybody, but it might be good to just see it on screen too.
Oh yeah, sure.
If you still have it up.
Yeah, so I've got, well, I'm sorry, I just clicked it away, but I've got a photo of the dog, and see, that really helps. The great thing about a tablet is you can zoom in on different areas of the dog. Like, you know, when I'm working on the ear, I can zoom in on, and you can see those areas of dark brown, of reddish brown, of white. And look how that white just kind of follows the edge of the dog's ear. That's the great thing about using a tablet, is you get a nice big image and you can really see those details, because it's all about details when you're doing a dog portrait or any portrait. You're just trying to get all the little details that you can get. So right now we're going back, we're doing some of those darker areas of the fur, and you're just looking at your image. You're following the way the fur follows the shape of the neck of the dog, of the head of the dog. Sometimes the fur on the face of the dog is a different color than it is on the back of the dog. Like some dogs, it's maybe lighter on the face. But that's the fun thing about drawing animals, is there's so many different types of fur colors. So you can explore all the Prismacolor colors with all these different types of dogs you can draw.
Hey Dan, a couple quick questions.
Uh-huh.
First, is it easiest for you, and are you going from lightest to darkest when you do the fur? Is that how you like to do it?
Yeah, I sometimes, yeah, it depends on the dog, but yeah, a lot of times if it's a light dog like this yellow lab, I'll go from the light color to the darker colors. Yeah, it just depends on the color of the dog mainly, but that's usually how I work.
And can you describe the strokes that you're drawing? How hard you're pressing and kind of how you do those strokes?
Okay, so when I'm trying to indicate the fur, like when I initially applied the yellow of the yellow lab, you know, the overall color, I press pretty hard. But when you're doing the individual strands of fur with like this light umber right now, I'm not pressing quite as hard. I'm just trying to lightly indicate each piece of fur. So you're not pressing as hard as you were when you first started filling in the yellow of the whole head. So now it's more of a lighter stroke, and you're kind of doing like parallel strokes. Like if you look on the photo of the dog, you can see which direction that fur is going. And so I'm just trying to follow the shape of the fur as it follows the structure of the dog's head. So we're just working our way up. And once you've started to get, you know, some of the fur, what I end up doing is I end up going back to the white, because the white is what blends it. Because just by itself, the darker brown is a little too harsh. So if you look at your photo, you can see that it's a softer color. And the way to soften that, way to soften that brown is to go in with the white. You can also, you can also get a Prismacolor blender pencil. But with this particular set, we just have the white. That's actually good because that's what I use to blend a lot of the fur that I do for animals. So see how that's softening up the brown, and it's softening up the yellow background too. Because if you look at the photo of the dog, it's not just yellow. There's a lot of white too in there, and that's what gives it that soft yellow lab look. Is going in with that white, softening up the brown areas. And
Yeah.
you really have to push kind of hard sometimes to really indicate where the white is too. What was that?
Yeah, no worries. I was going to say, we had a question about whether someone could do their drawing in multiple sittings. That wouldn't impact their drawing in any way, right? It would still be just as good.
Oh, no, and that's what I do too. I'll work on maybe do my midtones first and take a break. And maybe the next day I'll work on the shadows and the highlights. So yeah, that's fine. That's the beauty of art, is you can just leave it on your drawing table and go back to it whenever you have the time. So we're going in, we're lightening those brown strokes. So we're starting to get an indication of how the fur is going to look, where it's much softer with these individual strands of fur. So you start to get an idea how that works. So let's go into the mouth area and the nose. The nose is kind of it's kind of a pinkish color, but I picked a henna. Depends on the dog, but the henna is kind of a pinkish red, but it's not just pink. So if you look at the image of this dog, it's really not a straight pink. It's almost a pinkish red, and that's why I selected henna. But there's other colors you could select from the Prismacolor palette, depending on the dog that you're working on. If it matches, like the nose of dogs changes a lot. There's black noses, there's red, there's gray, all kinds of different colors. But that's the great thing about Prismacolor, is if you get one of the larger sets, you can get almost every color of the rainbow. So I'm letting some of that white highlight show through on the nose, because if you look at the dog, you can see there's white highlights along the nostril. And then there's also some black areas. So it's not just, one color. If we go in with the white.
The color that you use, the reddish color, is called henna, right?
Yeah, it's henna. Yeah, it's like a reddish, kind of a reddish, red pinkish color. So we're just going in, we're adding a little bit of highlight. And there's that highlight area on the nose, the front of the nose. And on this image, you can just see a little bit of highlight there as it comes down. And then you can see the fur on the muzzle area. So once again, like I said, the great thing about white is you can go over the black, and then you can start to almost turn it gray, and you can start to indicate those little individual pieces of fur on the mouth of the dog. And let me sharpen the white here. It's getting a little dull. You end up doing that. You might want to invest in an X-Acto sharpener too. It's a little faster. So we're going in to the black, and it's going to fade into that white if you look at the photo. Because it's not just a straight black, it kind of blends into that cream color of the lab. That's the great thing about white, is you can blend colors. So you can start to indicate how that muzzle area has the black that blends to the gray. And then, it comes around. the mouth.
Dan, while you're blending that, we had a couple people that were curious about how you come up with the original outline. Do you trace it, or can you talk about your process for doing that as a starting point for your
I
drawings?
usually just set up my iPad like I did here, and I just look at it real carefully, and I just draw just the basic outline of the whole head. And it's just basic sketching. Like if you take a drawing class, they'll teach you how to like maybe break the shapes down into like the circular shapes, and like, you know, the more cylindrical, like the neck, and you know that this is more like a triangle. So I just start with basic shapes when I sketch it, and then I just kind of refine it from there. But with it, when you're just doing the head, it's not, you know, it's not that complicated. You can just focus on, you know, like the triangle shape for the ear, the ellipse shape of the eyes, and just focus on doing a basic outline, like what, you know, like we started with. If you use the basic outline, that will get you started, and then you can add all the details later when you're coloring. So you don't need to put all the details in the sketch. You can add that later on. So you just need a basic outline.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're getting that nose, some of those highlights, some of the highlights in the black of the muzzle. And it's a matter of layering colors, and then you're trying to bring in some details where those individual whiskers are. So sometimes you can vary the way you sketch too when you're filling in the color, because you see when you see the black on the fur, it starts to just break up into individual pieces of, you know, hair, black hairs. And then there's also the little dots where the whiskers are for the dog. So you can start to indicate those. And they're almost in like a pattern. They're almost in like a, you know, like a curved pattern. So you start to get an idea. When you do enough dog portraits, you start to get an idea of patterns for different types of dogs and the shapes of their head and their eyes. And so you get better at figuring out how to draw them, and it gets faster too. So the more labs you draw, the better you can get at doing lab portraits.
And
So
we're
we're
about
starting to indicate.
halfway
What was that?
time-wise. We're about halfway time-wise, so you know.
Okay, well, I've got a couple of quick trivia questions for people. What year did Prismacolor launch these Prismacolor pencils? See if anybody can put that in the chat if they want to guess. And also, what special use Prismacolor pencil was introduced in 1997? Now, I
Getting
indicated
1973, 99, 2018, 2012, 52, 70, lots of guesses.
oh, well, should we just go ahead and tell them?
Yeah,
Okay, well, for the special use Prismacolor pencil was the colorless blender that came out in 97. And Megan, do you want to tell them how long ago Prismacolor first launched their pencils? Was it the
you can
19?
do it. I don't have it up in front of me, but
I
you
think
can
it was
have
1937. Can you believe that?
Yeah, someone just goes 1938. Two people. Super
These-
close, guys.
These Prismacolor pencils have been around for a long time. I think they predate a lot of us, and that's why they're so good. Well, cool. Well, thanks for answering those. So now we're going to go into the neck area with the light umber again, and just start to fill in some of the shadow that you see in that neck area with the light umber. So once again, with a yellow lab, you got the base yellowish cream color, and then you go in with the browns to get the details of the shadows and the different areas of fur where it's a little dark.
Dan, we're getting a couple questions about how to draw different types of hair. So like if you have a curly hair dog or if you have a cat or something, do you have any tips for, especially for curly? We've gotten that a couple times.
Oh yeah, I've done a lot of Cairn Terriers and poodles, and with the curly hair, you end up doing a lot of I'll just draw on here. You end up doing a lot of, semi, half circle shapes with the curly haired dog, especially poodles. So you end up doing a lot of that. Of course, with the lab, you do a lot of more straight lines, on the fur. But yeah, depending on the dog, you'll do maybe curve lines for curly dogs, straighter lines for dogs that have more straight hair like this lab. Just depends on, and there's
We
so
had
many.
somebody ask if you're a dog or a cat person, Dan.
Well, I like both, but I do happen to have a cat. But when I was growing up, I had a dog that I loved a lot, named Rusty. He was a Irish setter. So we're going to go in. We're going to add some browns into the nose area on the face, and once again, you're just trying to bring in more detail into that fur and show the shadows and the highlights and the midtones. That's what brings your dog to life, is bringing in all of those other colors. And on the head of the dog, there is brown in the middle, like in the temple area. It almost creates like a little V there. If you look at the image, and then you can see like where the eyebrow is, there's some more darker details with brown. And then the top of the eyebrow. And then when you come around the eye too, there's a little more brown detail. And then also, actually maybe in here too, in the eyelid, there's a little bit of brown. And a lot of times in the eye, you can see a little bit of brown. Depends on the dog. Sometimes their eyes are just mainly dark. But like if you look at this yellow lab, see that little bit of brown right there? There's just a little hint of brown. And you'll probably see it more if your dog's in different lighting conditions. But you can erase, some of that black. And sometimes it's like a reddish brown. But you can go in and just add a little bit of color to the bottom of the pupil area. And that gives it a little more life. That makes it a little more accurate because you want it to look like your dog. But the top of the head here, there's a lot of darker fur lines. And there's also some white where the light hits it. And it's actually got a little bit of red and yellow too at the top of this dog's head. That's the great thing about yellow labs, is there's so many different colors in the fur. And it's that way with a lot of dogs, depending on their color. So I'll go in with the I'm sorry, wrong pencil, the reddish brown, which is the burnt ochre. And there's reddish brown fur up there too, along with the brown. So you can see a little bit of red in there. And then I'm going to go over this with white too, because this is a little too harsh. But there's even a little bit of yellow. So I've got a yellow ochre here. And you'll see a lot of yellow in the yellow labs too, depending on the area of the fur. But a lot of times you'll see the yellow in with the darker browns. So I'll go in, I'll start to smooth some of that color of brown. And then after I add some of that yellow, I'm going to go in with the white again.
Hey, Dan, have you used that orange pencil that's just to your right? If so, will you say what the name of it is?
Oh, this is peach. Now, sometimes I'll use a peach on a dog portrait, like in the nose area or in the mouth area. But peach is really important when it comes to people too. Okay, so I'll go in with this white, and we'll start to smoothen those colors. Like I said, you can get a colorless blender, which does the same thing, but it won't it won't make it look as soft as the white does. So I'm going in with the white and blending those colors. And see, you can see, if you look at the photo of the dog, you can see the areas where the light really hits it and you get that white. So I don't have tons of time right now, but we can start to just indicate where those white areas are. Like there's white right around the eye. And there's definitely white mixed in with the fur, the browns of the fur. But it's all about where the light in the photo of your dog, where it's resting on their fur and the face. We're trying to blend those colors together once again.
Hey Dan, we got a couple questions on the direction that you use to blend. Do you go with the previous strokes or do you go against them, or does it matter?
I'm kind of trying to go with them, because I'm not trying to get rid of the strokes. I want the strokes to show up, but I want to blend them. So I'm kind of following the strokes mainly, because I don't want to get rid of the strokes. If I were to go against the grain of the strokes, then I'd start to lose that, that line quality that you need for the fur. So yeah, I'm trying to follow those strokes mainly.
Perfect, thanks.
So we're going in, we're adding some white to that face. There's a lot of white on like the cheekbones, and there's white that comes down right in here. And there's definitely some white. You definitely want to go in and blend areas around the eye. That's where you start to really bring the dog to life. When you start to fill in that eye, see that sparkle of life, you start to see the details around the eye. And you can spend a lot of time doing the eye. And I recommend that you do. And, really look at that eye and try to get the shape right. Try to get the little subtle colors in the eye. You can get that little bit of brown in this yellow lab. Depending on your dog, it might just be grays in the eye. But
And we got a couple of questions about how you became an artist and how long you've been drawing.
Oh, well, you probably see with the gray hairs on my head that I've been around for a little while. So when I was younger, I drew a lot, and I wanted to be an illustrator. But then I decided in college that graphic design might be a better route. It's kind of hard to become an illustrator. It's a lot of competition. But so yeah, I took a lot of drawing classes in college and in school, did a lot of drawing when I was younger. And then, as luck would have it, I got a job at Newell Brands that makes Prismacolor. And so this has been my art supply favorite choice over the years. And that's just what I used to do all my dog portraits, because the colors are just so vibrant. And I actually took colored pencil classes in college. So thanks for the question. We're trying to
While
go.
you're doing that,
Uh-huh.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
We've got a couple of questions on people who have dogs that are all one color, so like all chocolate or all black. Do you have any tips on how to differentiate the fur or where to start with those dogs?
Well, just like this yellow lab, if you have a chocolate lab, a lot of times you pick there's actually a Prismacolor color called chocolate. And when I was doing a chocolate lab picture recently, I used the cream for this yellow lab. I used the chocolate brown that Prismacolor makes for the chocolate lab. And that was my base color. But like I said before, you go in with darker brown, like I'm using on this one, to get the darker fur details. And you go in with white, and then there's other colors in a chocolate lab too, just like there's other colors in this yellow lab. So it's basically just the brown to start with. But a lot of times a chocolate lab is got a lot of dark color too, like sometimes black in the fur and different shades of gray. So just depends on the dog. But yeah, those are fun dogs to draw too. So I'm just trying to blend in some of these darker areas. And I need to go into this muzzle area and start to blend this in. Sometimes if you blend white over black, it turns gray. But that's kind of how you can blend the black into the cream color. But you don't want to do too harsh of a transition. And there's some white around the nose too. If you take your white pencil, you can get some of that highlight around the nose. Normally this takes me a lot longer, but I'm just trying to do it quickly just to show you the basics of doing a dog portrait. But you can spend hours and hours on it. It just depends on how much detail you want. And it depends on your style too, because some artists want to do impressionist style where the details aren't as much. But then some artists want to be super photorealistic and get every single detail. So that's the great thing about art. It just depends on the style of art you want to do. But Prismacolor is great for whatever style you choose. So I'm going back, just adding white highlights here and there. Blending some of these areas where I've smudged it. And then maybe going back with some brown. So if you look in the forehead area, you can start to do some cross hatching. Cross hatching is where you do like a parallel line, and then you do the opposite parallel line. And that gives you the shading that you see in that dog's forehead. So you can use different, and then hatching is just parallel lines. So for this technique, I'm just trying to bring in that shadow next to the ear with parallel lines. So hatching, cross hatching are illustration techniques and fine art techniques that really help you bring out the details. And I recommend you take a drawing class if you never have, and it'll give you a great basis, a great base to work on portraits.
Dan, if people are
You
using the white to blend and it's getting black or a color on the tip of the pencil, is there a tip to get rid of that?
Yeah, what I do a lot of times is if I did that, and I don't want to put it in the area that I'm working on, I'll just take it and mark on like the tape or a piece of paper that I have on the side and just get rid of the black. It'll go away pretty quickly if you just mark on a piece of paper, and then you can go back and start using the white again, and it won't smudge. But it's easy to erase. You can use your eraser if you get some smudges. And the great thing about white is you can use white to get rid of smudges too. Because like I said, white will work on almost any color. And it's great for making the fur look really soft. So I'm starting to follow that shape of the head with the darker browns. And then we got the forehead area. Once again, I'm using those parallel lines to indicate that fur and that shadow in the fur. And see how you got those parallel lines. If you look at the photo, there's lines of fur on the forehead. And then there's lines of fur above the eye too. So we're just starting to fill that in. Add
I'm
more
gonna wrap
detail.
up in about 10 minutes. So just 10-minute
Okay.
warning.
Okay, well, let's just go in and just try to fill in some of these fur areas a little more, just to define it a little better. But obviously, when you do your own portraits, you'll want to take your time, and you can watch this video again on the Michaels site. Take your time with that and maybe draw your own dog. If you have a dog or a cat, just take a nice photo, put it on the tablet like I did, and then you can zoom in. I mean, they don't want to stand still for you a lot of times, so a photo is a great way to draw your animal. And a lot of times people really appreciate pet portraits because you don't have your pet forever. And so it's a great way to remember the pet. Somebody's lost a furry friend. It's also it's just fun to draw animals because they're just so full of life. And they're a little easier than people. People, are a little harder. Teeth with the people and noses and eyes are a little tougher. But drawing animals and dogs is a great way to start. And you can develop your skills, and then you can draw people or whatever you want to draw. Just going in and adding more details of fur. You can spend as much time with this as you want. The more details, the better sometimes if you want to do a photorealistic portrait. But if you don't want to do a photorealistic portrait, that's okay too. You can do more stylized. That's the wonderful thing about art. Whatever style works best for you. And there's brown pieces of fur in the muzzle too, here and there, the top of the muzzle. It's just a relaxing hobby. You can sit and you can draw. It's nice to, it's a nice, quiet, meditative hobby. You get good at it, you might be able to sell your artwork too. But it also makes a nice gift for a loved one. Just trying to soften that brown, indicate that fur. When you finish up a portrait, you're just going in with a lot of white sometimes and getting those highlights, those last minute details. You can even lighten those pencil lines with white if you want to get. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll erase the pencil lines before I start the picture, just so the lines don't show up too much. Just depends on the style of art you want.
Hey Dan, do you ever add on the little whiskers or do you just leave those little dots?
That's a great point. I do at the very end a lot of times. And a lot of times I'll either take a dark color, like a dark brown. But if you look at this picture, the whiskers are pretty white. So it's kind of hard to indicate white unless you, well, you can use the white pencil. But it's if your fur isn't dark, it's kind of hard to see it. But this gives you a little bit of an idea how you can kind of indicate those whiskers. Because yeah, there are, but it's easier to indicate the whiskers in the darker areas, like in the black areas. You can start to indicate those on the mouth. You got to keep your white pencil really sharp to indicate those. You don't want a dull white pencil because it's hard to draw. fine lines like Whiskers with a dull pencil. So, but it's all about, when you're finishing up, it's all about just going in and adding little details that you happen to see that you think is going to make your portrait complete. And sometimes it helps to look at it in the mirror too, because the mirror will give you another view of it. You might see something you did wrong with a perspective or something. How are we doing on time, Megan?
We're good. I was just gonna say we got a couple minutes left if you wanna have everybody hold theirs up.
Yeah, that'd be great to see what people have done. Let me change the view on my screen here. Oh, wow. Wow, that's really nice. Thelma, that looks very nice. Oh, Judy, that's a really nice, yellow lab you did there. Oh, wow. This is so cool to see. Amy, that's a really good job there with the fur and the color of the ear. Oh, I think I see some dogs too. I see Rosalind's dog. Hello there. Oh, wow. This is so cool to see. Oh, and there's Sheila. I see you and your friend there both did one. Very nice. That's so cool that you did art together like that. It's a great family activity to do art together as a family. Wow, this is really neat. Oh, Donna, nice job. I love the way you did the fur. That's really nice. Oh, that's really pretty, Lisa. Wow, it's great to see everybody's artwork. This is awesome. Cool. Well, Megan, any last thoughts we should convey here?
No, I think people had a great time. Everybody's look really great.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you guys joining us today for this dog portrait class, and maybe we can have some other animal portrait classes later on in the year. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you keep using Prismacolor. It's a great medium to work in. It's really clean. It doesn't create a big mess, and you can do it anywhere. So you can do it wherever you go. Just keep your little Prismacolor set with you and some paper. Cool. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate you joining us. Have a good day.